I don't have the controller hand to play it.
That's the other problem too. Is if we're going live now, we might as well start it up. Let's see if this breaks.
I will check out Twitch.
Yeah, like it's Street Fighter 6 is a great game. It really is a great game. I'm just bad at it, but I'm gonna try. I've installed it and I'm playing it for reals this time. I was playing online, getting my ass handed to me. It's okay. We'll give it a go.
Um, if you're going to change, I guess we could change the channel later for the Press B on Twitch, but we are
Oh
live
no, I
and
can
it
do that
looks
right
good.
now.
It
There
looks
is a
solid.
there is a bot for that. Give me 1 second. Give me 1 sec. Where's the YouTube? Oh, I didn't change
Yes,
YouTube either.
Tubbs.
Oops.
Oops.
Just technical issues. It's okay.
Man, it's fine. The day I had today, it's kind of expected.
If you ever on Pressby's Twitch, I added Nightbot to it, so you can do. I think it's this title.
Cool.
Yeah, title.
There we
It's
go.
easy to nice and easy to do it. All right, we're live there.
You went
Hello,
with
Twitch.
you went with that. What exactly is this Soulslike? Thanks, YouTube.
Look, at least I didn't pull the. What's the problem with Soulslike? It's like the trope on YouTube. Whenever I look at like
Yeah.
researching stuff that I want to do as a video, it's always
What's
like, "What's the
wrong with
problem
this?
with retro gaming?"
What's
It's like
wrong with this?
there's nothing wrong with
Should I
retro. It's great.
should I do my patented all souls when I'm dead? Like today on.
You know what? Go for it.
No, I'm not gonna do
Oh, I just may fix the video. Make sure that's the right person. It's Wolf.
that.
Where is it? There's yours. Well, I don't know if we have much of a plan, but we're live. I think we're good to go.
I got a plan. I got a plan. All right, are we ready for the one-liner?
Yep. Whenever you're ready.
The story, as it were. Let's do this. We're gonna read from the Bible, as it were.
Wow, the channel really pivoted, huh?
You like that? It's all for our Presbyterians. Where can I find?
Oh boy.
All right. Chapter 1. The story of Dark Souls. Story of Dark Souls series is taught through the act of playing the game. The players affecting the ancient worlds then venture into and must watch carefully for clues to their origins and history. This chapter will this podcast will collect many of these clues and arrange them into a linear story. Separated from the experience of playing, this mostly acts as a history lesson, but like all history, some details are clearer than others, and much of it is open to interpretation. Jake, what exactly is a Souls like? Today on Don't fat roll over the intro.
Shh, paying attention.
Hello and welcome, one and all, to another Friday night as Jake and I sit down to talk Press B to Cancel. That's right, Press B to Cancel, your favorite podcast to fat roll to. Well, at least to try and talk about difficult games with. Here to talk difficult games with me is one of my closest and greatest Canadian friends, Sick Jake. How are you, sir? You're wearing a beanie and I have a fan. What is going on right now?
Dude, you've been saying, oh, it's 85, 90 degrees today in my part of the US. And I'm like, it's 55 degrees up here in Canada. It's freezing today.
That's Celsius, by the way. So we're all dying up here.
Yeah. I mean, it's been mild all week, so I shouldn't complain. But today has been a little bit chilly. So yeah, I'm wearing a beanie because I'm in a basement and it's cold.
I am sweating my hat off. It is rough up here, but it's fine because it is the first glimpse of summer coming and over. You know what else is a good glimpse? Let's talk Soulsborne games. Let's talk difficulty. Let's get into the madness that is one of the greatest, most talked about, most controversially discussed game series that's out there. Soulsborne games. Soulsborne will include Dark Souls 1 through 3, Bloodborne, some spicing of Sekiro. It counts. It's in there.
It counts, right? Yeah.
And of course, Jake and my favorite game of all time, Elden Ring, will probably be smashing as well. But we will mostly hover around a lot of the Dark Souls / Demon Souls discussion because that is the basis of what a Soulsborne game basically comes out to. So I guess we start off with the question, what do we think? As I said in our opening line, a lot of this will be open to interpretation. We won't be talking about the stories or the in-depth this or the jokes about the lore within the items and all the people that you talk to. If you want that, go buy this book because there's plenty of information in there about that. But what we are going to talk about are basically what makes a Soulsborne game a Soulsborne game. We talk about all kinds of different clones, Remnant, Lies of P, even Tunic has been brought up in discussions with things that we've done in the past as it being a Souls-like kind of game. So, Jake, what do you think your definition of a Soulsborne, Souls-like game is?
Oh, don't ask me. I was going to ask you. So, and that's what I want to do in this episode. I want to define what this actually is because it's bigger than FromSoft now. It's not just FromSoft. They clearly invented this genre, but I want to define what makes it this because this is what 20 years from now kids are going to be like, oh, I'm playing Metroidvanias. Oh no, I like Soulsvanias or Soulslikes or whatever it is.
Soulsvania is a new word we found today, as a matter of fact.
Yeah,
just before
thanks,
we
YouTube.
fired up. Apparently it exists.
Yeah, but it's like that, right? Like there's people today who are of a certain age range where they'll say the term Metroidvania, but they don't know what Metroid or Castlevania is referring to. Like it transcended the original origin of that genre's name, and I think that's what's going to happen with Soulslikes. But I do want to define what it means because there's a couple of games that I've played that I think might qualify, but I'm not sure. So maybe I'm going to start with Souls-like has to be a game that is animation dependent, right? Where it's combat heavy and the combat is tied really, really tightly to the animations where you have to do an attack, it carries through an animation, and then you attack again. You may have combos and whatnot involved in your combat. You may have blocking and rolling, but you're at the mercy of the animations before you can act again. Would you agree with that one?
I could see some of that being a thing, but my personal basis on the idea of what a Soulsborne game is, and this is root foundation, I think. And again, if anybody's out there listening to us, they want to have a discussion about us and what they think Soulsborns are like or what their opinion is, please come and find us on Discord. Please come and find us at pressbtocancel.com and talk to us about that there. I know we're going to have a lot of varying differentiations between our ideas of it, but what I personally think that a Soulsborne or Souls-like game would consider is a game that is at a difficulty scale that cannot be scaled. It cannot be changed. You cannot change it from easy, hard, or medium. It is the scale it's going to be at, and you just do your best to try and get through it. But with there not being a scalable difficulty, there are patterns that are within the game that you can learn that will help you achieve whatever it is you're trying to achieve. Where hidden enemies are at, boss fights that have the same kind of mechanics where, you know, there's either a long attack or a short attack, and then the ability to iframe, fat roll, dodge roll. Fat roll is something we'll probably bring up this entire episode, obviously. But you can use iframes to get out of attack, and it's the same thing like Jake said about an animation that allows you to get away from something that you can dive out. Now, originally, when you play Dark Souls 1, even Demon Souls, the original Demon Souls in PS3, the rolling was there, but the shield was more useful than actually rolling out of the way. So actually having a defense was better for you than later on. When they started doing Bloodborne, then they kind of took that shield away. They actually give you a joke shield. It's an Easter egg shield in Bloodborne that's completely useless. But the dodge roll became a bigger thing beyond that. So
Bloodborne was no shield, but you had parrying. Basically, parrying was king in that game. I think similar with Sekiro is the same thing as parrying was king. And then I think the later Dark Souls had both. You could be a shield user or parry if you wanted to. Okay, so I'm gonna go back on what you said. You said difficulty you cannot scale. I'm with you there. Hard as hell, right? Sinistar's in chat, and he mentions also, when you die, you lose something in your progression. Like you're still
Yes.
progressing through the game, but you lose something you gained in that run. I think that's very key
Yeah,
too.
kind of that rogue
Right.
element to it of losing everything you worked for.
And then the learning of patterns and whatnot to kind of suit the environment. I agree with you there. And then I'm saying animation dependent combat. With those criteria in mind, is Monster Hunter not a Souls-like? Because hear me out, because it's very
Yep,
animation
I'm
dependent.
listening.
It's
I'm listening.
faster. It's
Hmm.
faster, but it's definitely animation dependent. It's definitely a hard game. It can be a hard game, and where you're rewarded for learning the patterns of the monsters you're hunting, right? They all have a number of attacks. You have to learn the strategies of beating the monster. If you die, you don't really get the items from the monsters, so that's the whole progression in Monster Hunter is you kill monsters, get ingredients, upgrade your armor. But if you die during a run, you basically get nothing but scraps, really.
Hmm.
So you're losing progression. There's no other monsters on the map. It's just one big. Okay, there is some monsters on the map, but they're nothing. It's the big boss battles you're doing. It's basically a
No, there's
Souls-like with just
Monster
bosses,
Hunter
right?
World. Monster Hunter
Yeah,
World, you can run into two monsters at the same time. I've seen them duke it out together
that's true. Yeah, that's
in
true.
that kind of sense. But
So in that case, do we consider Monster Hunter a Souls-like?
I would argue against that because I think the environment of the game itself sets it up for its own kind of I don't want to use the word story, but its own kind of difficulty and direction. When playing any of the Souls games that I've played, the world is almost harder than the bosses you run into. So it's like overcoming
Okay.
the challenge to get to the challenge to overcome that, if that makes sense. With Monster Hunter World, you kind of just run around and gather whatever items you need, and you don't really. I don't worry in Monster Hunter World that I'm going to get killed by a random buffalo running through or whatever those creatures are called. I worry about finding the monster, and that's the big bad. That's the big fight, right? Like you're not going to get taken out by the pterodactyls that are flying around. You might if you're fighting the monster and they come in, then that's a problem. But most Soulsborne or Souls-like games have some sort of arena set up for your boss fight or your big fight. It's that you are nothing unless it's already in there, nothing will interfere. It's you and whatever mechanics that thing has. And then you fight it and you congratulate yourself when you've beat your
Right.
head against the wall for 10 or 11 times just to
If you're
finish the first
lucky,
fight that you've done.
try
Right.
50
You know,
for me anyway.
right.
Okay.
So I think within the realm of a Souls like itself, I think the world is as treacherous as the goals
Well,
you're trying to accomplish. You know what I mean?
okay. So that's a good one to pull at. But I'm thinking of Elden Ring now. I'm terrible at these games. I've never been good at them. But out of all of them, I've played the most of Elden Ring. Like I've
Mhm.
played through most of Dark Souls 2. I bounced off of 1 a little bit, and I sampled 3. Just dived into 3 a little bit. But I played a ton of Elden Ring, and I didn't find the world that hard. Well, you know what? I guess I'm going to take that back because when you go into certain caves or certain like I wouldn't call them dungeons, but there's like
They're
crypts and
essentially
whatnot.
dungeons. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I
I
do
get what you're
worry that I'm
saying.
going to
Yeah.
die down there, and it
Mhm.
sucks when you die because you lose your souls or your runes.
Right.
I guess that works then. That the world
But
is
when
is a
you
factor in the difficulty. I guess.
think of it this way, and we'll use Monster Hunter World because that's the kind of the one that we're trying to match up, right? When you fire up and you fly into the land that you're going to go hunt this monster in, and you hit the ground, you're ready to go running, right? You're ready to go
Right.
and just go balls to the wall and take out whatever's out there. When you wake up on the high wall of Lothric, which is the first land of the area after you beat like one of the mini bosses, you're terrified of, oh God, this entire area is horrifying to me because I will lose everything just getting to the next step. I'm just trying to find the next bonfire or save point, whatever, whichever version you're playing, just so that I can take a breath to get to the next thing. I
Okay.
think Souls like are more stressful in the environment getting to the next goal than Monster Hunter was super, like you said, it's fast pace. I'm gonna go find this thing, I'm hunting this thing down, and then I'm gonna kick its butt when I see it. Dark Souls is more like I'm gonna walk so slow through the swamp and try not to get poisoned and try not to get sneak attacked and try not to
Right.
get blood damage and try not to do all these things. Mitsuda made it very clear that the reason there's no difficulty scaling and it's as hard as it is across the board is because he wants players to feel a sense of accomplishment when they finish whatever it is they're trying to finish. May it be just getting through Farian's Keep, may it be beating the Lords of Cinder or
Right.
getting through Dracolic or whatever. I'm trying to name drop here so people actually have my credibility on all the Dark Souls games that I've played.
I
But
mean, you've beaten all of them. I think nobody's going to take that from you. It's fine.
I haven't beaten the DLC of 3 yet. We're working on that. But
Okay.
that's beside the point. The point is that I feel more stressed. I mean, not now because I like playing it and it's entertaining to me and I'm better, but I still feel that sense of I don't want to go there. Like I don't want to go in that area. I don't want to deal with I hate this part of the
Yeah.
game. And as you keep climbing, because most of the time you replay the first half of the game a lot. So you're comfortable with it. You know where everything is, you know the secrets, you know this, that, and the other. So you kind of breeze through the first, I don't know, 2 hours of the game. And then you get to that part where you have not played a lot of because you have not repeated it quite a bit. Because it's the part where you either fall off and come back later, or something or else happens where it's not a repetitive thing. And the more you go, oh, I forgot about this. Oh, I don't like this. Oh, this is stressing me out. Oh God, I'm like, I've got this much health. I got one Estus left. I've got 17,000 souls, and there's a dark knight with a bow and arrow trying to hit me from afar, and I'm out of arrows. Like, I'm just gonna stop. I can't play anymore. I need to take a break.
Yeah. Yeah. There's points in Elden Ring and Dark Souls where you just get that one death and you're like, okay, I'm done. I'm just
Yeah,
not going to do it anymore. Especially when it's a death that you saw coming or you knew it was preventable, but it's a skill issue. Like
right.
I've like the reason I stopped Dark Souls, I think it was 2 originally when I first played it. I think I mentioned this before in a past episode. I was crushing it. I was doing so well. I was exploring, getting the lay of the land. I was leveling. I was grinding, enemies where I could. I was doing great. And then I had a large number of souls on me, and I got cocky, and I just pushed. I pushed a little bit further into the dungeon or the layout of the castle, whatever the hell it was. And there's a
Mhm.
door, and I opened the door, and it was pitch dark inside. And I'm like, I probably should go back to a bonfire, but I fought all the way here, and they're gonna respawn. Screw it, I'm gonna go inside this room. And I went in, the door behind me closed, and there was not one, but like 3 or 4 enemies in a small
Yep.
space, and I got my ass handed to me. And I just
Yep.
uninstalled I uninstalled it like Street Fighter 6, and I gave up for like 2 years. I eventually went back. I eventually to go back, but that experience kind of turned me off of it. So I
That's
did
fair.
a lot better with Elden Ring, but okay. So the world is stressful. The world is in a lot of ways more difficult than the bosses. I
Mhm.
think I can agree with you there, especially when I look at Monster Hunter Rise, which is the most recent one. As soon as the map opens, you hop your doggo and you just sprint. Or if Monster Hunter World, you leap off the nearest edge without any care about fall damage or nothing. You don't give a crap.
Mhm.
You just
Yeah.
go. You're absolutely right. It's a different tone. So
Mhm.
I can agree with you there. So Souls like a true Souls like, you get that sense of dread and worry and fear as you strategically go through a level, just trying to get on that next checkpoint. I'm with you there.
Right.
Um, so I'm not as familiar with Bloodborne and Soul and Sekiro like you are. Isn't Sekiro more open? Isn't there some verticality to it? Like, don't you have like a grappling hook or something?
Yes. Well, Sekiro is you say open, I don't think you mean open world. I think you mean more.
Like wide open spaces,
Yeah,
vertical.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. You get a lot of trees. There's a lot of there's the thing about Sekiro, which is really cool, Sekiro, however you want to pronounce it. If I'm wrong, tell me in the Discord, it's fine. The thing about
I'm probably
Sekiro
saying
is
it way wrong. It's okay.
Sekiro, I've heard it numerous different times. So if Matsuda wants to come in here and correct us, please. I
Yeah,
love your
notable
work.
listener, press B. I'm sure he's
Sekiro has a lot more high flying aspects. It's a lot more jumping around, like you said. A lot of Bloodborne, I think Bloodborne and all 3 Dark Souls and Demon Souls have a jump mechanic, but it
right,
is cumbersome and it's literally just to get from one ledge to the other.
right.
Sekiro has introduced the jumping mechanic into the game to add a more high flying kind of feel and a jumping back and forth with that. And then they added it to Elden Ring on top of that, but it's still not. The mechanics for jumping in Sekiro are fucking night and day versus Elden Ring's jumping mechanics in that. Sekiro, when you get used to playing with those skills and the jumping and the harpooning and the all that stuff, the grappling has stuff, you feel awesome. And I've said it in the past before when we were talking about what we like about games that we play, games that make me feel like a badass. Sekiro gives you that, just I am invincible. I can do anything after you take down a boss, and then you get into the next area and literally die by the next enemy. But that's how it's designed to go.
Okay.
The pairing system, the blocking and the dodging, it's a Souls-like, but it's such a different creature than anything else. In that,
Okay. So even though there's grappling hooks, it's a more agile, more faster, I guess, movement. It's not
Mhm.
as fast as Monster Hunter, but it is definitely faster than Dark Souls.
Oh
So
yeah,
even though it's
much.
faster movement, you still have that difficulty between bosses. The lead up to the new area, you still have that worry that you're going to get, killed by an enemy because you misstepped.
Yep. If you misstep,
Okay.
you can lose all your. You don't get souls. You get. Gosh, I can't remember what the coin, what the experience points in Sekiro. It's been a while since I played that, but the one benefit that Sekiro has that Dark Souls hasn't, but they still put the yin and yang into it, or they make it balanced enough, is that you can instantly kill things if you sneak up behind them or drop from
Okay.
above. You can wipe them out. You can even take out mini bosses. But how they balance that scale is that Sekiro is called Sekiro's Died Twice, because you can resurrect yourself and start out from where you were fighting. It's not respawning at a bonfire or a save point. You literally can bring yourself back to life and fight that person again right where you're at with a new life. Well,
Okay.
the enemies have that same attribute as well. So when we talk about things going into phases like we do, which we will probably talk about boss phasing, Sekiro does it with a second life for the
Okay.
boss. So you take down his life bar and you'll see a little circle and it'll go dark, and then they'll come back to life and have a whole new mechanic. And some of them have 3 different life scales that you
Oh.
have to figure out how to deal with.
Okay. So even if you backstab an insta kill, that could potentially be just like one life of that creature. Okay.
Right. Right. It's like
Yeah, that's an interesting
Battletoads. If you
mechanic.
die anywhere and use a continue in Battletoads, you might as well start over.
You start over. Yeah. God, I
Yeah.
hate that game. All right. So the reason I'm asking all these questions and I'm trying to drill down on the definition of this because there's other games I've liked quite a bit. The other one was Jedi Fallen Order, or
Mhm.
also Jedi Survivor more recently. Although I have not played Survivor, I've played a lot of Fallen Order. And when I played that game, within 10 minutes, I'm like, oh, it's a Souls game because there's
Right.
bonfires basically, and
Yep.
there's
Yep.
bosses, and it's very heavy on dodge rolling, fat rolling, force
Mhm.
rolling. I don't know,
Force rolling. Force
parrying as
pat.
well. Yeah, force bet. Yeah, so there's a lot of that mechanics that's there. It's also if you play on the regular difficulty, it can be quite difficult. That was a hard game for me to beat. I think I even
Mhm.
knocked it down a few notches on a few encounters. So there is adjustable difficulty in this game. And I think my most recent playthrough, I actually played it easy because I didn't want to deal with the Souls-like stuff. I just wanted the damn story. Um,
Right.
but it's got Souls-like elements, bonfires, combat, animation heavy, all out there. But the difficulty is adjustable. And I didn't find at any time the enemies between boss encounters were hard or difficult.
Mhm.
I never really worried about it. Some sequences are a bit tricky. Like I think when you're in Dathomir, I think it is in Fallen Order. There's a couple hallways where I'm like, screw you. But I didn't die very often in that game, except at
Right.
bosses. Because you're a Jedi, right? So you have like
Right.
a line of stormtroopers shooting at you. You're a Jedi. You're deflecting blasters back and you're knocking them back and forth. It wouldn't be a Star Wars game, and you wouldn't be a
Right.
Jedi if the mooks or the henchmen were difficult. So does that still qualify as a Souls game then, or do we
I
think it's
believe
disqualified?
I believe it is Souls-like. Like there's roguelike and roguelite. We could
Oh
almost
gosh,
create our own genre of Souls-lite in this game, where it
yeah,
has the basic elements of you rest at a bonfire, everything comes back, which is one of the biggest things about a Souls game.
right.
You use that bonfire to usually get experience from or level up your character that you collect from fighting things. Like if you ran through the entire game and didn't fight a thing, you didn't get any XP. You're not going to
Hmm.
level up. But if you're good, If you're really good, you can beat any Souls game without leveling up. I've seen people do blood level 1 runs on
Yeah.
Bloodborne where they don't level up anything and you can still beat the game with no experience. I don't know if you could do that in Fallen Order or sorry, Jedi Survivor or either one of those
Um,
two because they're the same
so the
thing.
thing with the Jedi Fallen Order is there is a skill tree. I don't think any of the skills are necessary. Maybe there's a few that you unlock as it's kind of like a Metroidvania where there's certain abilities you have to learn to beat the
Mhm.
game. But there's a lot of the skills beyond those trees, like extra moves or bonuses to, throwing your lightsaber and flurry and all that. You
Mhm.
don't need those, and you don't have to worry about those. But there's certain base one unlocks you need to get, I believe, but they don't need XP. I think they unlock and then unlocks the tree, and the rest of the tree is XP, if I'm not wrong. So I think you probably could beat it without leveling anything up.
Mhm.
I'll have to take a look at that. That's an interesting challenge. You're right, though. I've seen people beat even Elden Ring, right? Naked with a
Yeah.
giant club. And I've seen people
Yeah.
do it. It's which
Let
is
me
wild.
solar her is done with a bucket on his head and a sword. I mean,
Right.
you
It's
don't have to level up. It's almost a luxury to be able to level your character up in an RPG of all things. It's like, "Oh, I get to do this, not you have to do this." Like
well,
it's funny to think of it that way.
it's like playing Zelda and only doing the 3 hearts, right? Not picking up heart pieces. Right? Some
Right.
people enjoy their games and some people just want to, hate themselves. So you're
Some
going to
people
play with
want to
3
watch
hearts.
the world burn.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, I'm not at that level.
Okay.
I mean, November's in our Twitch chat over here, and he keeps telling me I should do a ladle run for Dark Souls 2. Ladle, not a useful weapon. I don't know if you've used a ladle to fight anyone before. It is
I
not
don't
a
think so.
very effective weapon.
I'm trying to think of didn't somebody do I think somebody did an Elden Ring run with just shields. Was that it? Or was that Zelda?
No, there
Different
is a
game.
build. There is a build in Elden Ring where you can use the dual shield
Dual
build and
shields.
get
Okay.
through. Yeah, and get through it
Yeah.
somehow. It's probably a big pain in the ass, but
Right.
can be done.
Okay. Okay. So basically, we're saying that there's Souls likes, and now there's Souls lights,
Now there's
and
Soul Light. Coined
a
by Press
Soul
B to
light.
cancel. Thank you.
Yeah,
Put a
we're
pin in
gonna
that.
trademark that term. You don't use it. We see you, YouTube. We won't touch
We see you.
Soulsvania, but Souls light. That's fucking ours. Okay.
Soulsvania off limits. Souls
Yeah,
Light,
all us. I
join the
want. I
club.
want credit. Wait, but you know what? This makes sense though, because then I would consider Monster Hunter World a Souls light because there's elements of
Yeah.
it, or like Tunic, right? I love Tunic, and people keep saying, "Oh, it's a top-down Souls like." I mean, yes and no, right? There's definitely bonfires. There's definitely you lose stuff on death, right? Like there's a risk reward mechanic to it, but it's
Right.
definitely not like Dark Souls. Not entirely. It's more puzzle
No.
game than anything else.
And
So
it
I would
it
consider,
has the accessibility ability and the
yes,
accessibility ability that you can change to make it so that it can be one or the other.
right.
So, but I'd still argue even with that. Now I played it differently from the rest of you guys. I kept the stuff on because I am the
Sure,
masochist
sure,
apparently.
yeah,
But I would still argue that it is very Souls in its aspect of fight things to level up. You lose everything if you die, and you have to start from the beginning of an area. And you're literally, I felt like I was looking for the next save point, like the next
yeah,
bonfire or the next area that I can take a break. Because the irony behind the bonfire is, what do you do at a campfire? You chill.
yeah,
You take a breather, you relax, you cook some food, you roast some marshmallows, you just chill. When you think campfire or bonfire, you think party time, kick off the shoes and kind of chill, right? So that's what a bonfire is essentially in Dark Souls, is a place to catch your breath and just think about what you've done and if you're willing to continue to do more of what you have already done to get here. Um, so yeah, I if we're gonna use the Souls Light acronym and say that's that, then it would definitely fit, I believe, that area that you and I discussed. But
right.
I think it's more Souls like than Monster Hunter World would be, my personal opinion.
I don't. For me, it's just the bosses. Like the Monster Hunter World bosses just the amount of like experience and learning you need to do with those. You
Mhm.
you really need to learn the pattern, especially some of the higher tier bosses. They get quite difficult and they're hard, right? And they're very intimidating, especially World of Arise. I feel like that. I think it belongs in a Souls like. Although I'm with Souls light. God damn these
There it
terms. Yeah,
is.
but yeah, Tunic. The reason I say Tunic is light over like, right? I feel it's less like a Souls game because the back half of that game, it's not even about the combat anymore. The combat is really only a third of that game. The true game in Tunic, and I won't talk about it further in this episode. We did do a full spoiler episode on Tunic,
Yeah.
which hopefully people want to listen to or watch because it was a great game. But the
Tunic's a
back half is
fantastic game.
totally a puzzle game, though. It's a puzzle game. It's an experience. It's a meta thing. It's not a combat game. It's not a Zelda Dark Souls thing, although you might think so in the first couple hours. But it's so much more, and I
Mhm.
haven't seen that before in other games. So okay, Sinister's asking about Lies of P
Lies
as
of
a
P
Souls like,
is
but it has difficulty settings.
I want to verify that. Let me verify that there is difficult. I have it, but
Okay, have you beaten
let's
it
see here.
or you just
I
played
have
it?
no. I've
Okay,
made it. Liza P does not have difficulty settings, and all players must beat the game the same level of challenge. So, Liza P is as close to a Souls-like game, and in play. When I fired up Liza P, I played a demo months ago. I was watching a streamer that I really like, Late Night Retro, had pulled it out, and I was like, "What the hell is this? Is this some new Soulsborne game?" It looks like a FromSoft made game.
huge,
Basically,
yeah.
Lies of P is Pinocchio in a Dark Souls setting, and it couldn't be any more Dark Souls setting. It's got the same dark background, the same dodge mechanics. When you first start up the game, you approach a bench and you get to choose your play style. So if you want to be strength, quick, or balanced, you pick whatever weapon that is. And then from there, you continue onward and play through the game. You were looking for, they're called stargazers. A stargazer is essentially a bonfire, and that's where you go to level up. And if you rest at the stargazer, you guessed it, everything gets recreated.
Right.
You fight your way through the level, then you find yourself in an arena boss fight, which I fought the first boss and I actually beat it. Pretty proud of that. And then you go on to the next level, and the story continues to go, much like in Dark Souls. I mean, we know the story of Pinocchio. It's obviously a very twisted story of Pinocchio, but the story is told as you're playing through it through the NPCs. There's like a narrator talking to you, which I believe is the fairy godmother, but I don't know yet. I haven't confirmed that yet
Okay.
because I haven't gotten that far yet. But she's telling you where to go and what to do as you are progressing. But you are fighting mechanized puppets that have attacked this city that are crazy. The boss fights in some of this game are insane to see, like
Okay.
these puppets turn into, I guess the best way to say is steampunk machines that you have to fight and get through. So instead of blood, there's oil, and it's really, I gotta say, Lies of P is extremely well done if you are a Soulsborne player and you are interested in something that's a little bit different. I know there's games like Remnants out there that is
Yeah.
supposedly a Soulsborne. I've never played it myself, but I know a lot of people compare it to that. There's another one that came out that I was hoping was going to be a little bit better, but it kind of fell short. Was Mortal Shell. And Mortal Shell is a Soulsborne type game where you inhabit different bodies of people and take on their attributes. And if your shell dies, you basically escape that shell and have to find a new one, or you're weak
Okay.
until you don't find another one. It's got a really cool aspect to it. I was hoping it would be a little bit better. I played it for a little bit. It's just a little too slow for me, in that whole speed fighting thing. You can
Okay.
almost start with Sinistar has brought this up in MP discussions about Armor Core 6. It is a FromSoft game. It's got kind of a similar, the only thing that's different about Armor Core 6 being more Soulsy is the world is not as frightening as the giant boss fights that you have to get
Right.
into. They are arena fights. You get into an arena with a boss and then you take it on and you hit your head against the wall because whew, some of the fights in that game are ridiculous when you first start playing it and don't know what's going on. But that's how most Souls games are. When you get into a boss fight, you're staring at the thing you have to take on that is sometimes 5 times your size, and you're like,
Always. Yeah.
what am I supposed to do with this? Like it's a puzzle. It's the same kind of puzzle trying to figure out how to take it down.
But Armored Core 6, though, it's mostly shooting, right? Because you're mechs. It's not very
Yeah,
animation dependent combat, though. It's more actiony.
there is some dodge rolls there. I mean, not dodge
Okay.
rolls, there's dodging, there's like
Boosting
strafing,
or
like
whatever.
you
Yeah.
can do the hovering back and forth. So it's a lot quicker. It's hard to say that it's Souls-esque to its deepest core, but it has attributes of it that you could argue, maybe. I don't think Nier is very Souls-like. That's much more RPG, more third-person RPG, action RPG. I
Yeah.
will say the No series is very Souls-like. Wulong, which is just came out, unfortunately did not take very well to PC, is a very Souls-like game, as well as the remaster re-release. I don't know if it's a remaster, but Lords of the Fallen is another, I think it's Viking driven Souls-like kind of game.
Oh, I didn't know that was
Um,
a Souls-like. Okay.
yeah, Lords of the
I'd
Fallen,
heard that
and I
one.
think
Yeah.
the one that just came out just recently is a remake of an older version from, I think, PlayStation 3. I don't know. I'm treading in very light water here. I don't know if that's true or not. But
Yeah.
I know Lords of the Fallen is very Souls-esque in the way that it plays with dodge roll, boss arena fights, world is scary, so on and so
Right.
forth.
The one game I was expecting to be more of a Souls-like than it is Dragon's Dogma 2. When I on
Mhm.
paper I'm like, oh, that's got to be like a Souls-like kind of game. It could not be further from a Souls-like game. Like
Yep.
it has the idea of the campfire system where I don't know if the first one was like this, but in Dragon's Dogma 2, as you're traveling and exploring the land, which is quite a big map, as you take damage, your maximum health does decrease over time, and it won't go above a certain point unless you stop and do a camp or you go back to town. So there's that
Mhm.
element of like you need to stop at a bonfire to upgrade your skills and re-equip skills and to kind of heal yourself. Stuff doesn't automatically respawn, although things do respawn quite quickly. But the combat was almost disappointingly not Souls-like because what I was expecting is very actiony, arcadey, beat 'em up style combat. Lots of
Mhm.
high flying, jumping off cliffs with daggers at the backs of giants, right? But there's one class, the fighter class has a shield and you can block with it. Otherwise, there's not much in the way of defense, right? It's not one of those like dodge roll type things. You're not fat rolling in Dragon's Dogma. I think there's some evade abilities, but they're very deliberate for a certain class. And you have to equip them. So like when
Right.
I'm playing it, I was thinking it would be more like Witcher 3, which is very much about parrying and dodging, or dodging especially for Geralt. And there's not
Mhm.
much of that in the game, and I felt kind of weird playing a game that was so close in theme and giant monsters and exploring, but the combat couldn't be so different. It's kind of wild. Um, Sinister is mentioning Metroid Dread as a Souls-like 2D game.
He's also
Metroid.
saying Helldivers 2 could also be
Oh, is
Souls-like
he just
because of,
trolling?
yeah,
Is
it's a little
Sinister
trolling because
trolling?
he's saying
This
Scary
guy.
World is Helldivers 2 a Souls-like. Helldivers 2 has fat rolling. This freaking guy.
That's
No,
true.
it's, you know what we're trying to tell you. It's there is, November said it best, is true. There's very few games that have really hit the nail on the head as much as Liza P
Yeah.
and the No series. Those are the two closest Souls game that if you're playing them, you're like, I'm playing a Dark Souls. This is Dark Souls. FromSoft made this game and they didn't come close to it. But
When did Demon Souls
it
first come
feels like it.
out? That was
Demon
PS3.
Souls
What?
came out for PlayStation 3, and I want to say, oh, it's got to be like 07 or 08. Someone
Okay.
mind palace that because I'm not sure. But
Okay, but as a genre, it's still fairly new. So it's still
mhm,
at the point of where now, because games typically take between 3 to 6 years to develop, right?
right,
So
right.
I mean, it's now 2024. Well, okay, so it's not been that recent. It's still a
It
new
doesn't.
genre, I guess. So I mean, it hasn't got the point where I mean, other developers influenced by FromSoft are taking all their ideas. It's not quite so blatant, but there's definitely themes from those games that's being carried over in spirit into other things. Like somebody was debating with me that Breath of the Wild had Souls-like elements, right? Just the way the combat is, it's very dodge, very shield, like parrying. You're exploring the world. There's no consequence for dying, and you die a
Right.
lot, but the
Yeah.
the combat was a lot more deliberate, right? So
Right.
there's that. So I don't know.
Eh, I can definitely see Souls-esque elements in Breath of the Wild and the other one whose name is eluding me.
Yeah, I can't remember the new one, which sucks because it was one of my Game of the Year contenders. How easy I forget what my
It's
Game of the Year
Talk.
picks are.
It's Talk. TOK something or other.
Oh,
We're
Tears of the
terrible.
Kingdom.
Tears of
Tears
the
of the
Kingdom.
Kingdom.
There it
That's
is.
what it is.
See, I knew it was
Me.
Talked. I knew the abbreviation.
It's okay. Nintendo
But
doesn't watch us. We're good. It's fine.
that's good because we probably get canceled real quick. But yeah, no,
Okay.
I
Yeah.
the Jedi Fallen Order is a good example of taking Souls-esque. They're cherry picking the
For sure.
difficulty and the design and the world design, but with Dark Souls stuff, which and it's so funny to think that it came out in 2009, and I mean we're 2024 now, so it's almost we're getting close to 20 years old on this thing,
Right.
but it still doesn't feel like it's that old, but it feels like it's been around forever. Like you talk Soulsborne, Dark Souls is the meme for your measurement for difficulty for any game. So if you're like even playing a retro game, like let's say 8-2 for Sinistar, that's Dark Souls-esque for him. You know what I mean? I'm dropping that because you're here. But you know what I mean? Like it's
Yeah.
the Jake's inability to not buy a new game and call it Name of the Year. That's Dark Souls for Jake. That's too Souls-esque for him.
Yeah,
Me
but
not
you
being
can't.
able to miss FOMO. FOMO is Dark Souls for me. I
Yeah.
can't. I have to try it out.
So I won't use that definition because you just can't call any difficult game a Souls like game because it's difficult for a very specific way, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm not going
Yeah,
to
it's
call
design.
Mario Brothers 1 or Lost Levels Souls like. It's hard, yes, but it's not Souls like. But
Right.
there's definitely room for other perspectives or genres or games like Tunic above
Mm-hmm.
top down, right? Souls like. The one that came out a number of years ago, it's not new. Salt and Sanctuary is a 2D game, and when I first played it, had not played Dark Souls before, and I was trying to figure out why this 2D game was so fucking hard because it's a brutally difficult game with really awesome combat and a wild variety of weapons. And when I eventually
Mm-hmm.
played Dark Souls 2, that was my first one. I'm like, oh, that's what they're doing. They were doing a 2D version of Dark Souls, so there's
Blasphemous
room
is
for it.
another version of a 2D platforming slide scroller that has Dark Souls or Souls-esque elements in it. When you die in Blasphemous, your body, you lose all your XP and all your leveling, and you have to go find it. And you also rest at different locations and save
Right.
points to move on to the next stuff. And some of the boss fights are in arena. Now, again, it's a side scroller and it is retro artwork, so it's very retro-esque looking, but it's hard. That game is hard as shit. Like Blasphemous is difficult. I felt really proud of myself when I finally started getting somewhere because it also has Metroidvania aspects where you
Right.
have to go find something to progress into the next area. So Soulsvania is probably Blasphemous probably fits into that brand new
Yeah,
category that we heard about today.
which we're not going to steal. We're going to double down on Souls like or
I
Souls
like
light.
Soulslike.
I
Soulslight.
need to get a T-shirt for this. Souls lights. All all the taste of Dark Souls, but half the calories. Did
Half
you
the
ever play
rage.
Cyber Shadow? Cyber Shadow is
Yes.
a ninja game.
Yes, I did. I love Cyber Shadow. It's a great game.
I don't think it would even fall into our new definition of Souls light, but it has that same like you're trying to get to the checkpoint and then you're just dying a
Oh,
lot to get to the checkpoint. Bosses take multiple runs. It's quite a difficult game. It took me a lot to beat that one. So there's elements there.
I get such a Ninja Gaiden feel for playing that particular game that it never even
Yeah,
crossed my mind to put it into that kind of that genre. It's much more Ninja Gaiden
right.
kind of feel.
Yeah, it
We're
probably
just
leans
butchering
more
all the names of the games
towards.
today.
That's okay. It's on brand. We're tired. So yeah, it's probably more of a Metroidvania, if anything. I think it's probably falls into that category. But it is interesting though that that's a game where it's quite difficult, and you are fighting for that checkpoint. That whole idea of you're fighting to get to the next checkpoint, I think
Mhm.
is really key to what I would consider a Souls like for sure. Because
Yeah,
you're right on that point.
there is that aspect of I just need to get to the next area. If I could just
Yeah,
get to the next area, everything will be fine and I'll figure it out. But I got to get some breathing room so I can plan my next attack. Because with these action RPGs, there's a lot less action and a lot. I mean, there's a lot of action. Don't get me wrong, but there's a lot less like I'm just gonna take two swords and just go flying through this area. That's how I used to play Dark Souls, and that's why it was so difficult for me, was because I was dying constantly because I'm charred headed, as we coined in the stream, and I just keep doing the same thing. You build a strength build and you just go swinging, and
Right.
you can't do that. You have to come up with a plan of attack, and you have to watch everything closely so you know where the weak points are.
Yeah, and like even in Dark Souls 2, that's the one I played the most of those games, and I didn't start getting progress in that game until I realized you can't run headlong into the rooms. You have to take every single fight, literally every single fight. I'm not even talking bosses. Every
Mm.
enemy you see, you have to take one on one and be slow, methodical, and deliberate with your actions. Like Dark Souls 2 has there's one area with, I don't know the names of the locations. I don't have the lore book behind me. But but you're in this castle like outdoor area, and there's just a series of these gigantic armored fat enemies. There's like a dozen of them that you have to proceed to. And every single one of them, they're slow, they have patterns, but if you don't learn those patterns and strike when you're allowed to, you just don't get anywhere. Once I realized I have to stop and look at the patterns of enemies and memorize every pattern, that's when the game kind of clicked for me. And that's where it has that, like you said before, almost a puzzle like element where the fun of that game is figuring out and learning how to beat the patterns of the enemies. But the Dark Souls definitely has that for every single goddamn encounter. Elden Ring, I found less so. I found most of the time I could probably just sneak behind an enemy and backstab them,
Mhm.
or ride the horse. The horse was a bit of a cheat for me, or I used the summons and spells. I was abusing the summons quite a bit in Elden Ring, which is fine.
Mhm.
Like it
Yeah,
had all the cool stuff of Souls games in there, but I liked how there was options to like make some of the encounters easier for me, I guess.
we could also argue though. There's something else I wanted to bring up, which is also a very important aspect to Souls games that we haven't really covered. But I think Elden Ring took a lot of the Sekiro sneak attack, finding other ways around things, and brought that over to Elden Ring in a less shinobi battle kind of way into a more Dark Souls kind of way. Because
Right.
I mean, Elden Ring was the first open world game, right? Everything else is linear. Bloodborne, Sekiro, all the Dark Souls are all linear games. So, you go from point A to point B, which Elden Ring was open world, so you can make the decision to go wherever you wanted. You could start anywhere you want, and you weren't wrong. It's however you wanted to play the game. Um, so they just took they keep taking little pieces of their previous games and then kind of splashing them in there. And I think that's what Sekiro brought to Elden Ring for that one. But let's talk about another attribute that is also, I believe, in Tunic, which adds to its Soulsy, Dark Soulsy esque nature, is having to have stamina. Not having you cannot flail at anything. You have to make sure you have enough stamina to not only fight something, but to get the hell away from it. So you can't. My biggest thing is I'm a button masher, right? So I
Right.
mash buttons, and that's death. That is death in any kind of Souls game, because you run out of stamina and you're pressing the button. You're like, why am I not attacking? It's because you don't have stamina, and now you can't roll out of danger. And this thing's wide enough to put the hurt on you, and you're done. Like you can't walk back fast enough to get out of there.
Even
So
blocking, I think, in those games usually
mhm,
drains the stamina meter to a degree.
mhm.
I mean, it depends on the game, but yeah, that is true. Where even combat itself punishes you if you're not using your resources wisely, I guess. I'm thinking
Yep,
Elden Ring has the magic meter, like the mana bar, but it had stamina as well. And you're right. If you were spamming attacks, you got nowhere. You had to
yep,
be very deliberate in what you're doing, even in Elden Ring. I'm
yep.
trying to think. Did Tunic? Yeah, Tunic had the stamina bar.
Tunic had a stamina
I
bar.
turned it off. That's how I beat
Yep.
that goddamn game. Especially when I realized combat didn't matter. Jedi
Sekiro does not have a stamina bar. That's one of the
Okay.
only ones that I don't believe it does, but it has a different level of challenge that it gives you, because it's so vertical, and because it's high flying, and because you can do different things. They add different things into the game that make it difficult, because you're not dodge rolling, you're dashing from
Right.
side to side, getting out of the way quick, trying to jump over something. It finds other ways for it to trick you. Like if you're jumping over to get out of the way, there's no iframes. Things can grab you and throw you back, or kick you
Okay.
in the face or something. So there
Okay.
is another aspect of difficulty. They really wanted to hone in on the parrying and the blocking and the timing of breaking people's repose down so that you can really get in there and start doing some cool damage.
Okay.
It's one of the things that I liked about Sekiro was that you could just go crazy, but you didn't need to. You know what I mean? There was other ways around things.
Yeah, I don't have the appetite for these games like you do. I do like them, but it just the time commitment to beat them is I just don't have time for these games. I'm too busy not playing Street Fighter 6. So,
Well,
but if I were to play
make
another one besides Elden Ring, because eventually I'll finish that, I think I would probably play Sekiro. That's probably the one I would
Sekiro's
play.
good. It's a
I would
great
also
game.
like to. I'm interested in Bloodborne because like the
Mhm.
transforming weapons is a really cool mechanic there, and I love like a. It's almost like a Castlevania vibe to that game. But
Yeah,
I've been waiting for PC release. It's been forever since it came out on PlayStation. I'm waiting for PC release. I don't think we're gonna get one now, but I
don't
would
hold
love
your
to play
breath. Yeah,
that.
I
Yeah,
think PlayStation is just saying we're not going to redo anything with this game. We're not making a sequel, and we're just going to leave it here on PlayStation 4. So GG's.
it's so weird. That's a
But
FromSoft
it's a
game
great
too,
game.
right? It
It
is.
is.
Yeah.
It is.
Okay.
Yeah, Soulsborne is a mixture of the Souls,
Right.
Dark Souls, and Bloodborne together.
It's
So
so
that's
wild.
where
It's so wild.
that
I'm
franchise.
really curious to see what FromSoft is working on next. Like it was nice to see them do an Armored Core game that was really well received. I don't know what they do next. Some tells me it'll be an Elden Ring 2. I'd be
Mhm.
interested in that. I love the open world of Elden Ring. That's what's really sold it to me. So maybe we'll see what they do next.
I have heard unfortunate rumor that there will be no more DLC for Elden Ring, and there may not be a second. That there will be something else that's coming. Mitsuda's not going to give up on his poison swamps and his dark undertones and his lore hidden amongst his items. You know that's
Yeah.
not going to happen. We're going to get something else that's going to be equally as cool. I mean, they took Armor Core 6 and made that game badass. That game is
Yeah.
cool as hell. Um, I've preached about it on numerous episodes in the past. Please go check out our backlog because they're really, really good.
Right.
Um, but yeah, Bloodborne needs to get to PC. It needs to get somewhere that has better accessibility than either a PlayStation 4 or 5.
Right.
Because Bloodborne, that was my first Sisyphean game that I played when I first joined the podcast with you guys, and I gave it another chance, and I'm glad I did because I fell off that game pretty hard, but I beat everything else that I'd played. But the story in that game is excellent. It's got, like you said, it's got the Castlevania. Obviously, it's the Cthulhu, the Lovecraftian storyline, and all that
Right.
stuff that goes with it. And it's very twisted and dark, and it's a lot of fun to play. Um, yeah,
Yeah. I'm not sad that Elden Ring might be a one and done. Right. The DLC. I'm still debating whether I'm going to pick the DLC up because it's not
wow.
cheap. But it does seem like it's a beefier DLC than we've seen in other FromSoft games. Like I
Mhm.
think Dark Souls 3 had a couple DLCs, but when you combine them together, that's the same price of what they're doing for Elden Ring. And it does seem
Right,
like there's the same amount of content. And this one is just a one DLC that's big. It's more of an expansion than anything else.
right.
And I'm not really hung up on the lore of Elden Ring. I mean, I've joked enough over the last couple of years about it with you. That what exactly is the Dung Eater and all that crap. I still like the games. I'm now at the point where I get what he's doing, where there's just the hint of enough lore, and you fill in the blanks in yourself, and that's fine. So I'm not hung
Mhm.
up on the lore, as long as the next game they do that's in this style, whether it's Elden Ring or another Dark Souls or a Sekiro that's open world, an open world Sekiro would be badass, right? Where
That
you
would
have
be
a
cool.
mount and you're traveling between regions, and it just or you have more freedom in towns to grapple
Mhm.
around. That could be pretty kick ass. I mean, there's what's the other one? Ghost of Tsushima, I heard was kind of like this.
Yeah.
That's
And
one we
Ghost
haven't
of
talked
Tsushima
about.
is coming. It's now that's not a FromSoft game. It's a
Right.
different company altogether. But it's coming to PC. I think,
Yeah.
if not already, really soon.
So I heard
People
that
have
had a
been
lot of
waiting
the
for
same
that
elements.
to hit it. Yeah,
Mhm.
Ghost of
Yeah.
Tsushima is beautiful. That game is
Yeah.
absolutely stunning and has. I'm not going to get torched for this, but it has some pretty accurate cultural references throughout the game, where it's not magic and might, and it's not Dark Souls or anything scary or creepy. It's, it's humans fighting people and
Right.
Mongols versus, the Japanese in that whole feudalistic time. But that's a really cool game. I'd love to have. Here's the thing about the Dark Souls, Sekiro, all that stuff. These games are very linear, but they don't feel linear. Like, they
Right.
feel they feel really open, and I think it's because of the way that they have designed how open everything looks. Now it's you can't go anywhere you want, not like Elden Ring where you could literally walk basically anywhere in the game as long as it's within the boundaries of the game.
Right.
But
Mm.
even looking at Dark Souls 3, when you first walk out and you see the high wall Lothric and you see the castles, you feel like you go there. You're gonna go there at some point. You just have to follow the path to get there.
Right.
But you don't feel claustrophobic like some of these other Souls-esque games that are very linear, where you're like, I gotta follow this line to get where I'm going. You feel like you can go in any direction that's out there. It's really
Like
neat how they design it.
Dark Souls 2, there's branching paths, kind of.
Mhm,
I mean, I guess there's still one way of going through the game, and you're gonna go everywhere anyway. But I
mhm.
mean, there's definitely hidden secrets. Items are hidden everywhere. There's a few items I found in Dark Souls 2 where I'm like, how the hell does anybody know where this is? Like I felt like I
Right.
stumbled into it. So
I mean, shit,
that element of
there's
it, right?
disappearing walls. I mean, there's breakable
Right.
walls that are somewhere in there. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
So when you have that, right? Actually, Elden Ring has that too. It was 100 hours before I figured out there were disappearing walls in that game, and my
Mhm.
mind was blown. So there's that element to it. So when you have that kind of freedom to find secrets, it doesn't feel as claustrophobic as maybe I would have originally thought. So I'm with
Mhm.
you there. Plus, you kind of just see the battlefield in front of you, right? You could always see in a distance the enemies, and you kind of figure out how am I planning to attack this area. And when you have to like see the whole scope of the field in front of you, it doesn't feel linear because you kind of feel like you have an option of which way you're going to tackle the enemies. The
Right.
openness is in how you fight, not necessarily what the terrain you traverse. So I'm
Right.
with you there. Ghost of Tsushima. I might have to look at that one because that's the one there where they're it's like a homage to old Japanese samurai movies. I think is what it was,
Yes.
right?
Yes,
The
you can
black and white
actually
aesthetic. Yeah,
you can you can play it with the black and white
yeah.
directorial, view of how it used to look back in the day, and have, the actual Japanese with English subtitles. So, if you don't speak, you can understand it, but you can make it go as real of a movie as possible. And I got it. That game it's not a Souls game. It's not Souls-esque, but it is gorgeous.
Oh, it's not
How they
Souls
designed that.
like the combat and
I
stuff.
don't feel like it's Souls-like.
Okay,
I would say it's more Monster World-like. I mean, you're not
really?
looking for well, you're not looking
Oh,
for one big enemy, but the world isn't as scary. It's more like Witcher. Yes, I would say it's more like Witcher. It's more
Witcher
like
3. Okay,
um oh god damn it, I'm just playing like Forbidden West. Like you're just traversing the world and you run into things and you fight them and then you move on to the next thing. And then
okay,
there's camps that you're going to go clear out to help people. You're going to save people along the road while you're going. It's very much like Witcher. I would definitely
okay.
that's a really good analogy of that.
If that's what it's like, then I actually will probably like it because I love Witcher 3 and I love that style of game. It's less punishing.
Hmm.
So,
Hmm.
I mean, I do like, I really liked Elden Ring, and there's for me, a lot of reasons I like Elden Ring is because of elements that I felt were in Witcher 3 as well. But, I'm going to have to probably check out Ghost of Tsushima. Maybe that'll be my Sisyphean game next year. No, because I'm going to pick something easy next year. I got to pick something
I
easy next
think
year.
I
You think,
think Elden Ring should be your Sisyphean game for next year, personally, but that's just me.
Me, I don't know. After the run of luck I'm having with my picks, I think I might pick something easy peasy that even my children could beat, like Mario Brothers 1. I think that's what I'm going to pick next year because that's not a difficult game,
Ooh,
right? Anybody can beat
love
Mario
you.
Brothers 1.
Love you, Sensor.
8-2.
Damn.
It's fine.
Mario Paint is Jake's next year game. You got to play
Do
the
that.
fly swatter
The
game.
fly swatter game is kind of hard. It ramps up. Can I get diamond rank in fly swatting?
It ramps up.
It
If
gets
you even
difficult,
tried
man.
fly swatting, get good. The Souls-esque fly swatting game.
Yeah, that's right. The Souls like,
You got to get to the flies the fly zapper to rest so that you can level up your fly swatter.
I don't know.
Oh
It's
man.
nice that this is a trend though for games because I always I like both sides of the spectrum. I love it when a game is I used to say this all the time. I like it when a game respects the player's time. So which means
Mhm.
I don't need a 100-hour game. I don't need a very difficult game. Just give me a nice bite-sized game with a great narrative and fun gameplay. I'm good. But I do like the longer games, the more difficult, challenging games too. I like both sides of that coin. So I like that there's this kind of genre of games which going in are going to be difficult, but it's totally beatable if you're just willing to learn the systems and learn the patterns and kind of immerse yourself in the combat. I
Mhm.
like that about these games. Like I used to bounce off Monster Hunter because at first glance I'm spamming the buttons, I'm not doing anything, I'm doing terrible. Once I sat down and learned the game,
Mhm.
learned what it wants you to do with the combat and what the loop is, I got really into Monster Hunter hard. Like I have hundreds of hours in those games. And I think it's the same when I got into Dark Souls 2. Once I learned the mechanics, I got into that game pretty hard. Didn't beat it though, because it is difficult, but I got
And
pretty deep
that's
into it.
this is going to sound funny, but most people I find, most people when they kick off playing Dark Souls, they spin off of it immediately. This is too freaking hard. I don't even know why I'm trying to play this, but there's an
Yeah.
itch. There's an itch in the back of your brain. Maybe I think I can do this. Let me come back at it. And that game, and I think I know why it's called Dark Souls, is because it literally takes a piece of your soul that you can't get back until you go back and accomplish whatever's out there. I I like a challenge. I love a challenge, and I never in my life ever viewed myself to be any kind of Dark Souls fan or fanboy, which that I've greatly turned into as of late. To the point of again, I'm buying these books. I'm trying to figure out the lore. I want to know the story about it so it's clear. And Jake and I joke about it, but it's true. The stuff is really not well defined because
Yeah.
you don't when you play Dark Souls, you don't play it for the story. It's not an RPG that's out there to be
Yeah.
like, I want to see what happens next. It's I want to take this guy out. I'm going to take this thing out and I'm going to get as far as I can in a sitting and then we'll come back and do it all again tomorrow. I'm going to get better at this game. It's going to happen. And it's more of just the challenge in the gameplay itself is what makes the story what you want it to be. It's crazy to even think that someone's like it's like Napoleon Dynamite. We're going to make a movie that has nothing to do with anything and everyone's going to freaking love it. It's like Seinfeld. The
Just
shows don't make any
experience.
sense. There's just
Yeah.
an experience. And that's exactly what this turned into for me. And it turned into like, holy crap, I'm a Dark Souls streamer now. I'm a Dark Souls player now. I've revisited. We're revisiting 3 right now because we got talking about this on MPs. We talked about making this episode. I was obviously very much excited about it. And in doing so, I was like, I should go back and, scratch the itch that's starting to come up a little bit. And now I'm committed and we're going to play the whole damn game again. And I'm going to try and finish all the DLC plus the bosses I have
Yeah.
yet to beat on stream. I'm looking at you, Nameless King. You're going down.
That's what, like an 80-hour game, I think, when you consider the DLC. It's good, but it's a beefy game.
It'll be up there in the hundreds probably.
You're
And with the
right though.
way
When
I
you,
play it, it'll be up there in the 200s.
it's a hard one though. Okay, so I agree with you 100% though. When I first played Dark Souls 2, that's the one I first started with. I bounced off it because going in, I saw the stats, I saw the items you pick up, dungeons and monsters. I thought it was a JRPG or an RPG adjacent game. And while there's RPG elements to it, it's not an RPG. Yeah, you level up, but it doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter what level you are in those games, really. It's like you said earlier in the episode, you could beat at level 1 if you're good enough. It's a skill thing. So when I first started playing it, I thought, oh, it's an RPG. I'm into this. And then I quickly realized that it wasn't an RPG and I kind of bounced off it. And that's where I'm just like, it's its own genre. It deserves to be called a genre. Soulsborne, Souls-like deserves to be its own separate thing because it is a unique genre that's not RPG. It's not action combat. It's a mix of all these different things together in a very unique thing.
Mhm. Yeah. It's really hard to take Souls and call it anything else than other than what it is itself. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you said, it's an RPG. It has RPG elements. The leveling up does help. May not seem like it, but unless you're amazing at this game and can walk through it without taking a single hit, which people have done, God help them. You're going to want to level up and you'll add all that stuff and losing the souls is actually very heartbreaking when you have all this stuff saved up. Like Jake said, he had all this time. And when you second guess what your approach is going to be, should I go, if I go to the bonfire, all the crap that I fought to get here is going to come back. I got to do it all over again. Maybe behind the door, there's sanctuary behind it. Maybe there's 3 undead people that are going to beat the ever living hell out of me. I don't know. But I know one thing is I don't want them to come back because I already know what I dealt with to get here. What's beyond this door may not be as bad as what got here. And then you find out that either, oh, shoot, there's a bonfire. Holy crap, thank God. Or nope, that was a very poor decision. But then you learn from that and you don't go back in that room again, or you don't kick the door down this time, you open it and you kind of filter things out and you fight them one on one, like you said. There's
Yeah.
this game is definitely a teacher as opposed to just someone that's just beating the ever living crap out of you. It teaches you to play these types of games completely differently than what you're used to, just button mashing your way through any kind of action ARPG or action RPG that's out there.
Yeah, it's definitely the risk reward is definitely big in this game, right? Like I lost that reward when I went to that darkened room, but if had I beaten that section, having gambled all the souls on me and just pressing onward forward to another bonfire, if I had made it, that would have been very satisfying.
Right.
Sadly, it wasn't. But the risk reward is part of that, chemical in your brain that kind of catches you, right? Where once it triggers, that serotonin drip feeds in, right? Where you feel so badass and so
Man.
accomplished. So it's
Yep.
definitely a thing. Yeah.
Yep. Beating some of the bosses on there definitely gives you that adrenaline rush, and then you come down and you're like, why do I feel like I'm buzzing? Like
Yeah.
I'm gonna go to the next thing. Like, I'm ready to keep going. Let's go on to the next thing because you're so excited about it. And it's always the worst decision you can make to be like, oh, let's go on to the next thing. It took me 15 hours to beat this boss. What the next one's gonna be like. And it's all about the wonder of what will happen next.
Yeah, they're so long though, but they are good games. They're just so long.
They're only long if you're not good.
Yeah, well, I'm not good at these games. Like I said, I hope they do another one that's Elden Ring like with the open world, where it gives you the option to kind of just, you know what, I'm having a bad time with the bosses, I can't progress there. I'll go try a different boss, or I'll go grind some giants for 15 minutes and let out some steam and then go back and try again. I like that I don't get, stuck in one hallway and it can't progress. I hated that about Dark Souls 2 and 1. But Elden Ring was a lot easier. You still had to beat them. You had to beat everything, but
Yeah.
at least I didn't feel like
But you had
stuck,
options.
right? Yeah, you had options.
You definitely had
is
options.
king.
You can also go in and find some cool, like, summons or a better weapon or something that's out there in the world that doesn't involve having to get somebody's remembrance, which is essentially the soul from Elden Ring, to make a cool weapon with it. You can go get, the blood katana, or you can go get the moon shade, or
Right.
the sword of faith and devotion, or whatever, the fire sword that everybody liked
Oh,
that
that
they
sword was
nerfed.
badass when I found that. I found that without guides. Oh, fuck, that was awesome. That's such a
Right.
cool weapon. Yeah. You know
So
what else has
I
options, Chard?
yeah.
You know what
What
else
else?
has options? PressBToCancel.com, Chard, has 205 episodes of our podcast. We've been doing this for almost 4 years.
Oh, I
There's
love
so
that
many
segue.
episodes to listen to.
That was a great
right.
segue.
I'm saving that one. But yeah. We've
this
talked
is
about Elden Ring before, you and I, and we did an episode
yeah.
on Tunic. There's a couple of these games we talked about in the past, and they are fun to talk about because they are so unique compared to other things, right? Even when something is copying that formula like Lies of P, they still feel really great on their own, right? With the style and whatnot.
Liza P is as close to like Bloodborne, a new Bloodborne version, as you're going to get from the original.
Yeah.
It's really that good. And November had mentioned it, but to be honest with you, if you want Bloodborne for PC, go buy Liza P. It's
I might
pretty
check
much
that
the
one
same
out.
thing. It's great. It's great. It's all right. We are adding to Jake's I'm not going to place a Street Fighter 6 list already on this episode,
You
which
understand
I
how many
think
games came out this week, dude? It's
if
like indie
we
game release week.
I think honestly, Jake and I can have this discussion after we're done with the podcast. Maybe we'll add a list of the games we talked about that are Souls-like, that if people are interested, they can go and check it out in the comments or something like that, or even put it in our Discord so that people can go and see
Yeah, we can drop a
what's
list in
out
the
there.
Discord.
It's not Dark Souls, but it's close to it. Or I want something that's so close to Dark Souls but not Dark Souls. Check this one out. So we'll figure something out with the Discord for you guys. Well, this was fun. This was not that any of our episodes are not fun. There's not one episode where I go, God, I'm glad that's over. But much like
Thank
a lot
God
of
this
the
wasn't a
Souls
bracket
games,
episode, Chard, because you and I would just fight for an hour. Figure out the worst games, your guys' bad takes. That's okay.
Wow.
No Metacritic to decide battles here. This is good.
You're just mad that I'm beating you in the Metacritic game.
Fuck, you are so far ahead in that. It's wild.
Thanks, Stellar Blade. I haven't
Well,
got Tree out yet.
Well, now that Nintendo is like half admitted they have a new system coming, the industry's worst kept secret, but they've said it's basically getting announced this year. but it's not going to come out to 2025. So half my picks on the Fantasy Critic poll are like unnamed mainline Mario platformer. Well, that's not going to come out this year. So
Jake really gambled on this one this time.
really tried. But like you picked some winners. The only thing I have for me coming up is the Final Fantasy 14's Dawn Trail. That's got to review good. It better review good. Yeah. Otherwise, you're going to take it away. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, Jake. Well, is there anything else that we'd like to add to this this very vague and don't worry, we're going to put all of our item descriptions in the chat by the end of the episode so you can follow this along. So it's less.
Yeah, let me shout out a couple of things I've been doing. So I've been guesting on a couple of the podcasts when I have time. So I don't know if the episodes are airing anytime soon. So the first podcast is Retro Wars with a guy named Danny. He's a fantastic guy, very He's got a really strong personality. He's very opinionated and is good. And we've done a few episodes. We did do one on Shadow the Beast, which I think comes out soon. And you know how much I love Shadow the Beast. And I recorded another one with him recently. So Retro Wars, he's also on YouTube now, doing really well on YouTube. I'm almost jealous, actually. And then I just recorded an episode with Dave over at Remember 64. We did do an episode with him in February where we did the N64 brackets, care of Metacritic. And I did an episode with him and Jiggy Lookback talking about Superman 64, which is fantastic.
Wonderful game.
Experience. Yeah, but it's been fun having conversations with other podcasts. So I'm going to toss that out there. So if you are a podcaster yourself and you're listening and you want one of us to guest, might be open. At least I'll try to be. So feel free to hit us up.
I'm also down. I'm also down to guest with everything. We really enjoy doing this, and we definitely like spreading our wings amongst the other retro / non-retro podcasters that are out there. We're actually might have a special visitor coming here in the next couple of weeks for our own podcast here at Press B to Cancel. I won't tell you when, who, or what it's going to be about, because I know a lot of you guys like to have that blind side hit you in the face. So be a good time. As for me, I've returned to Twitch in some form. Last night we played some Dark Souls 3. I was happy to get back to my comfort soul food game, as I like to call it, Dark Souls 3. It's been a lot of fun getting back and kicking the rust off of one of the more difficult games out there to play, which some will argue it is not, and some will argue what is wrong with me. But I don't know what's wrong with me. My mother still hasn't explained it to me. I've also fired up a little RimWorld. That's been fun. That's been chill right now, but we haven't been raided by massive hordes of people. So right now it's very relaxing. I keep saying I'll get back to Horizon Forbidden West, and I might not. I don't know. My list is growing, and since I already beat my Sisyphean game this year, my stretch goal, much like Sinistars, continues to change and morph to, you know what? I didn't finish the Dark Souls DLC ever. I haven't finished the Nameless King or the Lord of Cinder on stream yet. Maybe that'll be my stretch goal. Or Sinistar and I'll just do a dual stream together and we will diamond rank Street Fighter 6 before Jake does. That's probably
so, look, assholes. I did install it again. And more than that, I actually turned it on. I booted it up. I selected a character. I did some combo trials and I actually went online. Thank you very much. Did I win any battles online? No. Am I even close to diamond rank? No. But I played Street Fighter 6. I'm trying to learn it. You know what it is I'm struggling with the combat timing on it. Fuck you, sister. It's not bullshit. I actually played the game. Go look on Steam. You can see I played recently. I played at least a few matches, at least one. But it's like the combo timing is pretty tight. Well, I'm so used to Guilty Gear Strive, which is also a hard ass game, but I took the time to learn it. I just need to learn Street Fighter 6. But this week alone has been like, despite the Sony and Helldivers controversy and other stuff going on with Xbox, indie games are killing it this week. Hades 2 Early Access came out, which was so impactful. The guys who did Dead Cells, I think it's Evil Empire games. They have a Prince of Persia game. Evil Empire. They have a Prince of Persia game coming out. It's supposed to be the 14th. They're delaying it a couple weeks because of Hades 2, which is wild. And then there's Animal Well came out yesterday, which is a fantastic, like, it's not Tunic, but it has that meta secrets and puzzly vibe to it that I'm really digging. So Animal Well came out. There's like 4 or 5 indie games just this week that came out that I wish I picked for Fantasy Critic because they all did really well. So it's kind of like the year of indies, I think, for anybody who's into that kind of scene. So if you're not into the $70 AAA games, there's a lot of cool indie games that have come out this year.
Indie games are really really rise into the challenge. I mean, there's been some great new stuff out. There's some great old stuff that I keep going back to. I re-downloaded Enter the Gungeon the other day, a roguelike
Yeah, that's
that's
good
been a
too.
lot of fun to play, but it's a great indie type game. So, and I cannot get enough of Binding of Isaac. That game is awful, and I
You're
love
still
it.
playing it? Okay.
I
All
love
right.
Isaac. When I can't think of anything to play and I'm over Balatro, I fire up some Isaac. It's easy to fall asleep to. So I know I have weird dreams and nightmares after
It's
I'm
the
done
stuff of
playing it, but I'll tell you
nightmares.
what, it's still a
Yeah,
great game. Um,
it's good. Yeah.
so yeah, we've got a lot of really good things coming up. So don't go anywhere, and please hang out with Jake, myself, Sinistar, Guy Prime, and Werewolf. We'll be all back here together at I think some point soon. Um,
Well, GP's
yeah,
off for a few weeks, but I think most of us are back next week with our special
mhm,
guest, which to look forward to. And then, yeah, well, we got lots of stuff coming up.
fantastic. All right, Jake. Thank you so much for being here. People in the chat, people that will listen to this on all the podcasts, where you can find us, Spotify, iTunes, iTunes music now, since Google isn't a thing anymore, I believe. We talked about that the
Stop
last
making
time.
up things, dude. Like, it's
What?
Apple iTunes, and they don't even call it iTunes anymore. It's Apple Podcasts.
Oh, it's always going to
Google
be iTunes Music.
Podcasts is gone. It's YouTube Music, which you look. Just go to YouTube, press me to cancel, subscribe to us there. Then you can watch our lovely faces. If you're dead set against audio, yes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, YouTube Music, you can find us there. But yeah, don't make up things. I already bought
Right.
pressb.org because of your crap the other week.
Well,
So
go buy iTunes Music then.
no, yeah, sure. Don't sue Apple.
Let's sue Apple. I got to find something good here, Jake. You got to find something good to say to send us off. Oh, well. I
This
got
is why we
something
need
for you.
Wolf. Without Wolf, we have nothing to finish an episode off with.
No, I got
We
one.
just keep
Don't
going.
worry about it.
Okay.
Guys, this has been Press B to cancel. Ashen One, please bring me more souls.